Hello. In this video, we will look at getting the Roombas to walk back and forth. So we'll do the solution for that challenge. All right, so take a look. We have this Roomba in here. So what we could do to make it automatically move back and forth is to just set some invisible barriers then. That don't, they're invisible, so you don't see them, but the Roomba can interact with them. They are objects in the game; they're just not visible, but the Roomba can bounce off of them and exist. So what I'm going to do is go into the first level here. I think I'll make it a little bit bigger. So add like maybe 5 more spots. Yeah, something like that looks like about right. Maybe a couple more. And then I'm going to add another letter in here for these invisible barriers. So maybe I'll just call it B for like barrier. So I'll put one over there, and then I'll put one down here, probably just right next to the door. Yep, so now there's these invisible barriers here. Now they're not going to show up as anything because I haven't defined it, so go into the configuration for the levels. I did define what R is supposed to be and D, but let's see what B is supposed to turn into. So comma, because I'm going on to the next thing, quotes B, so the key is B, and then the value, so what does B actually stand for? Well, it is a function that returns an array of components that have the tag of, all right, so that was parens, arrow, square brackets, quotes. Let's call this barrier. It has the tag of barrier, comma. I'm not going to give it a sprite or anything. I just don't want it to look like anything. But I am going to give it an area, so area parens. Call the area function, which gives this game object an area component. That way we can do collisions on it. All right, so it's not going to be solid or anything like that, but it can have collisions in it. And that's basically it. So we just see if those at least load in. All right, don't see anything, all right, which is what we're going for. So now that there are these things with the tag of barrier, then we should be able to make the Roomba bounce off of it. Now, the first thing is the Roomba doesn't even move at all. So we could start to get it to move. All right, so we have, yeah, we just run that every function. Could try to give the Roomba a move component, or we could just tell it to move with its velocity. Yeah, let's do that. All right, so really Roombas kind of need a variable then to keep track of which way are they going. So I'm going to go back to the definition for Roomba here, comma, curly braces. All right, so I can give some of these properties, and one of the properties will be a y vel for y velocity. And I will set that, so that key is going to have the value of, let's try 300. Right, so now it has that variable. These are where I put the variables here. And while I'm doing variables, I might as well kind of take that idea of, I'll make the speed constant, which is 300. Okay, so now that those two attributes or variables almost exist for Roomba, then we can make it move according to that. So I'm going to use the action function for that. So action on everything that is a Roomba, comma, and then the arrow function that defines what actually happens. So parens, arrow, curly braces. It has some code in it. For each of these, I do want to catch each of the Roombas because there could possibly be more than one. So I'm going to catch that R that is the Roomba, and then I can do things with R. And importantly, I needed a variable. So we get our variables either from const or let, like those keywords, or as parameters. All right, so in these parentheses here, we get those parameters. So that's where I got my variable. I can't say quotes Roomba dot play or move or anything like that. That doesn't work. I need an actual variable. So that's where this was especially helpful. So I can say r dot move, and then I can give it the x and the y components. On the x, yeah, I just realized something. So on the x component here, I do want it to move. So make it move according to its y velocity. So I'm going to rename this xvel. Right now that doesn't exist, but I'll change that. All right, so update it based on that, and then don't update its y position. So that's just going to constantly happen for all Roombas. All right, so let's fix this piece here. I like that name, and this is referred to as r.xvel. There is no variable xvel. I didn't say const or let, and it's not even in my parameters, but I do have an r, and it was part of that. So let me fix this here. That was not the best name. Yes, this should be referred to as the xvel for x velocity. All right, and then probably should do this as well. So multiply it times dt parens. That does the whole frame rate thing. 300 is a pretty big number. This just makes it, scales it back down to the appropriate level, and it handles frame rates and everything. Okay, so that should make it move. Let's try that piece by piece. All right, so it is moving. Yeah. Okay, so the idea is then when it hits one of those barriers, make it bounce back. So the collides method is perfect for that. So you could do when, now there's different versions of the collides method, but we could use collides that actually takes in two different objects. I do it this way. All right, so collides quotes Roomba, comma, quotes barrier, and then comma for the arrow function for what actually happens then. So parens, arrow, curly braces. In these parameters, I'm going to catch two things. I probably won't use both, so I'll say r comma b. That way I have that variable r. That's really important. All right, so here is where I say, so I have collided with a barrier then, because I'm inside that function. So r dot xvel should just be equal to negative r dot x vel. Yeah. So I probably didn't actually need that speed attribute. I could have used that differently. But that should work. If I hit a barrier, then just flip my x velocity. Failed to get area dimension. So that would make it think that there are, maybe I do need a sprite or something like that. Can I set the visible property? So I'm going to check out the Kaboom JS documentation here. All right, let's see all this thing about sprite, because what I did very interestingly was I didn't give it a sprite or anything because I wanted it to be invisible. All right, so that returns the sprite component. All right, and it's the first Friday of the month. I don't know if you can hear the tornado siren going off. Maybe there is just a visible property. Let's see. What do we get out of game object? Basically comes down to the add method here. Yeah. I just really wonder if there is a visible property we could use. All right, because I believe that is the issue that we're coming against, is that it's hard for it to get the area because there is no sprite. I mean, we could try this just to see if this fixes the problem. So call sprite quotes wall, I think is what it was called. All right, see if that at least makes it happy. Now, comma at the end of that, because I have three things now, so I need two commas. This is taking quite a while. Sprite not found wall. Well, that does seem hard to believe because I just used it. It would come from JSON, so I can double check this. I do definitely have an object called wall. It might be having trouble loading this image file, so check to see if that's the issue I'm encountering. Okay, that looks like their server is crashed right now. So I am going to assume that this will show up. And maybe that's what this bug was in the beginning. Okay. All right, so something we'll leave for another little challenge is to get to use that flip horizontal part right there. And we probably could do this really quick, actually. That we should say r dot flip x. I'm just going to set that to r dot flip x. The not of that. So whatever it not is, that way it'll flip it. So I've hit a barrier, so then it just needs to change to something different. All right, it seems like the Kaboom site is what's glitching here. Yeah, okay, so it does show up. And it will take a little while until that does appear. Yeah, once I use the delta t function here, which is a good practice. My 300 number all of a sudden wasn't big enough, but it did just flip around. As you can see how it turned, and it's actually facing the other way. So we are getting it to bounce back and forth.